Thanks. All right, thanks, Michelle. Welcome to the April 8th meeting of the Ad Hoc Special Real Estate Committee of the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees. The meeting is being held in person with committee members participating remotely. At this time, Board Secretary Michelle Carreri will conduct a roll call attendance to determine if a quorum is present. Please clearly respond present via WebEx or present in person when your name is called.
Michael Fascitelli,
Present via WebEx.
Margot Cook, Vahid Onjazieri,
Present via WebEx.
Armin Sabatoni,
Present via WebEx.
Mark Parlange.
Present via WebEx.
We have a quorum.
Great, then I call the meeting to
Margot
order.
just popped on. Margot, I see Margot. She's
Yeah,
present too.
Margot raised a hand. I took that as a yes.
Perfect. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I'm having computer problems, but I'm here.
There you
There
are.
you go.
Thank you. We
So
have a-
reminder to all of us, that for the benefit of our audience and the note taker, please clearly identify yourself whenever you comment, make a motion or second a motion. Participants using WebEx are required to keep their cameras on as remote members, and all persons represented at the meeting location must be clearly audible and visible to each other. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that the University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and Niantic people. Are there any proposed amendments to the published agenda? No? If there are no amendments, I move on to the agenda item number 1, which is the approval of our last meeting, the minutes from our last meeting of December 10th. Can I get, may I have a motion that the committee approve the minutes of the December 10th, 2024 meeting?
This is Almond, so moved.
Seth Almond, so move. Second? Or
Second.
Wyatt? David, thank you. Any discussion? No discussion, a voice vote, all in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed or abstentions? No. Great, the motion carries unanimously. So the meeting and the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is item 2, which is, Abby and team, it's going to be an update on the campus plan. We're going to start with that, then the acquisition of the Upper College Road. So why don't we go into item number 2, Abby?
Great, thank you so much. Nice to see everyone. So this is an update on our comprehensive campus plan. So I'm pleased to have members of our campus planning team here, including Carl Cavallo, Ryan Carrillo, and Dulcie Hilgenfritz, who are working on this plan, but also pleased to have Tyler Patrick here from Sasaki, who's leading the effort on the Sasaki side. So we want to give you an update that talks about some of our frameworks, short-term, long-term, around potential project opportunities, also some updates on our open space framework and mobility framework. So again, this is a high-level update on where we are. We're still aiming for, a draft this summer to bring to you all for approval in September. So look forward to just walking through the latest, and I will turn it over to Tyler to walk us through this. And I think, Ryan, are you sharing your screen? Yeah, great. Everyone see that okay?
Yeah,
All right.
thanks, Abby.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, nice to be with you all. We'll run through the following slides. We have about 10 or so slides to provide the update. So Ryan, if you want to go ahead and click to the next slide. Want to note that this whole effort is being driven by the university's strategic plan. There are 4 priorities expressed within the strategic plan, and that has set up a number of planning principles. The way we think about these planning principles are they become the physical manifestation of our strategic initiatives. And so we want to find ways to advance these principles within the physical framework of the campus plan. So that includes, advancing scholarship and research, exemplifying stewardship, and that means, using the land and buildings to their fullest extent, fostering community cohesion, and strengthening, our sense of community across all of URI, improving accessibility, which we'll talk quite a bit about today, enhancing intercampus connectivity, so what ties our campus properties together, and then finally committing to a sustainable future, which is not only addressing environmental impacts, but also strengthening our campus resilience. Next. So you're all familiar with the Kingston campus today. Just want to sort of orient you all to this because you'll be seeing a few maps on the screen. Essentially, everything in the blue is a sort of our primary sort of academic and research facilities on the Kingston campus. The yellow is our residential facilities, and pink is more of the student life, and the green is athletics and recreation. And I think what you notice here is that our land use is primarily concentrated in these sort of north-south striations, and that is these sort of bands of like uses. And those striations are really further enforced by the topography that really sorts to really form physical organizing structure to our campus. Which in some ways can be useful, but in other ways can really challenge the pedestrian circulation, especially as we move, east to west across the campus. Whereas north-south connectivity works decently well today, we really want to think about how do we bridge the sense of connectivity from the campus east to west. Next. We want to note that we're not starting from scratch. There's a lot of great planning and initiatives that have happened over the course of URI's history, including the most recent history. There was, a 2018 housing and residential life plan, as well as various other projects and planning that is already underway. The purpose of this effort is to really take a comprehensive approach and fold all of that into this effort. So for the most part, we're working with the work that has already been done, and in some cases, needing to sort of make some minor adjustments and modifications to really incorporate it into a more holistic viewpoint. But certainly the investment needs in the student residential, which really occupy the sort of center of your screen, are a critical component of this plan as well. And thinking about how do we best provide connectivity, structure, roadways, and circulation and mobility with that in mind. We're looking at the eastern edges of campus that could contribute to a more active campus environment, particularly around this notion of a sort of campus gateway moment. And then infill, a lot of potential for academic infill, particularly on the north side of campus, the area just south of Flag Road. We think there's a tremendous amount of potential. So this is the working draft proposed framework, and I want to emphasize this is a draft. As Abby noted, we're continuing to work through some things with the intent that this would be brought back to you all in the fall with a draft plan to be worked through in the summertime. But really the framework provides opportunities for redevelopment within the residential areas of the campus, in particular that are consistent with the 2018 housing and residential life master plan. This doesn't exactly look like a one-for-one from the housing plan. That's because we've looked to really structure, we've taken the sort of programmatic assumptions and programmatic drivers from that study, and we've incorporated all of that sort of target program in terms of how much housing and dining we need to provide. But we've made adjustments as it relates to other things that we're trying to balance within the plan, like mobility considerations, like accessibility, things that weren't maybe part of the purview of that previous scope, as well as things like, open space and stormwater management. A major new piece of this plan is a sort of landscape armature, so to speak, that if you notice from the extends, if you look at where the quad is and look to the left of your screen, which is really marching from the sort of easternmost point to the west, what we're setting up is a new sort of open space amenity that serves as a central feature for the housing and dining district that helps provide greater connectivity all the way from Whitehorn Brook all the way up to the quad, from west to east and east to west, really connecting to Ellery Pond. The idea that you can have even a slightly expanded Ellery Pond to help handle stormwater and really make a central placemaking node on campus. This feature would also be characterized by accessible pathways that connect us east to west. So they really provide that sort of seamless mobility connection across the difficult topography for the campus. And then the mobility strategy I'll talk about in a couple of slides in terms of where we're focusing pedestrian priority zones and where we expect vehicular travel to continue. Next. And then long term, whereas we use these terms loosely, near term could be the next 20 years, right? This is a flexible framework depending on growth needs and growth considerations. We also wanted to say that long term, even beyond defining specific program accommodation over the next 20 years, there could be opportunities for even greater expansion, particularly on the university's sort of large surface parking lots. There are really 4 of them. And we think that that provides great long-term opportunity for expansion. Now, that would come with the trade-off of needing to potentially do additional structured parking, which is, we don't want to put all of our eggs in that basket. And that's why we're saying this is long term. The short term or the near term plan doesn't rely specifically on structured parking decks to achieve the strategy. However, long term, that might be in your future. It wouldn't be uncharacteristic for a large public university of your size to have structured parking to support continued growth. We're also identifying areas for expanded potential graduate student housing, such as the area located east of the Boss Ice Arena, as well as additional mixed-use expansions on the fine arts lot, et cetera. So again, nothing telling you need to do this today, but we want to, as part of this opportunity, flag opportunity zones for future consideration. Next. So programmatically, you'll see that we are sort of reinforcing the existing land use structure that you have and providing appropriate amount of growth. So we're achieving the target program from the housing and dining master plan and actually exceeding it. So about 2 million square feet or so of housing, dining, student life, housing and dining space. Student life space, about 500,000 square feet, shown in the sort of pink buildings. Potential for about 1 million square feet of potential future academic just on this campus alone. And then another 600,000 square feet or so of mixed use development. So again, a lot of this is infill development within the existing campus. And this just highlights the open space amenity that I was talking about. What you see in those sort of orange lines are the sort of accessible pathways that you can use to traverse the campus. And so we're really trying to create this connected and holistic student-centered residential community and really better integrate undergraduate housing with student life and seamless connection back to the academic core. And looking for opportunities with building orientation to create nice courtyards. These could be outdoor learning spaces, other areas to support student life. And again, as I mentioned, that sort of new ADA accessible route that forms the east-west spine. Next. So just some precedent photos of what we're talking about from other universities that have successfully navigated sort of topography challenges through both sort of winding walkways that are accessible, a mix of staircases, and even using the buildings to step through the landscape. And so these provide ideas of how we can sort of terrace that greenway and really provide opportunities for those accessible routes. Next. I also talked about the idea of more celebratory response to Ellery Pond. Right now, the edge condition is such that it becomes sort of a barrier to sort of integration with the campus. And we really want to find ways to unlock and celebrate the edge of the pond and actually use that space, that east-west connectivity, not only to connect the residential back up to the Upper College Road to the west, but also connect us eastward across the pond to the other side, to the sort of athletics and recreational uses that exist on the other side of the pond. And so we really see this as a seam, not a barrier. And I think celebrating Ellery Pond is an essential part of that. Next. And then the proposed mobility framework. So what you see here is everything in the sort of pink lines are what we're calling pedestrian priority zones. This doesn't mean absolutely no vehicles, but what it does mean is that we want to restrict vehicle uses to service and emergency vehicles primarily. We can even control the scheduled times where those, not necessarily emergency vehicles, but when service happens, for instance. And a key element to unlocking that potential to make the residential core in particular more pedestrian priority, such as Butterfield Road and Complex Road, is to actually open up Farmhouse Road and connect it and provide a sort of north-south connection for vehicles along Farmhouse Road. And so that is part of the strategy of having that become a road that we actually extend past the Memorial Union and connect, that allows us then to keep the areas east and west of Farmhouse Road more pedestrian priority zones for campus. We think that will really create this connected environment, and along with all the other sort of walkway improvements, will really create a real sense of place within the campus core. Next. So just some examples from other universities of what we're talking about on those sort of pedestrian priority areas. These can be sort of curbless, paved, or have paving materials on them that are wide enough to support service and emergency, but they don't feel like streets or roads. They feel like pedestrian priority areas. And so various examples of that across campuses across the country of how to enable that. And you can use, a series of, bollards or gates to provide the sort of flexibility to, if you need to open this up on move in, move out day, for instance, in addition to service or emergency vehicles, you have that flexibility. So just some ideas of what that could look like. So with that, that kind of gives you a high-level summary of where we are in the planning process. I'll stop there and invite any questions or clarifications, or Ryan, Abby, if you have anything to add that I missed, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just add one thing, which is what Tyler provided is a high-level overview of kind of where we are and where we're headed framework-wise. One of the things we're doing right now is working really closely with the provost and the deans to understand their growth and enrollment and research, to make sure that we're sort of getting to the next level of more detail around where the recommendations are going to be around buildings and research space. So you'll see more of that later. But I think that was a great overview. So I'd love to hear feedback, questions from the committee.
Are you inventorying or talking and looking at signage, lighting, wayfinding, so people can get around with ease and with safety from the parking lots all the way to the interactions, Tyler? Because one of the things that I walked from Ballantyne to the President's House one night, it was a adventure, and again, both daytime and night wayfinding, lighting. Are you inventorying that and coming up with recommendations on that?
Go ahead.
And
Abby.
I'll say quickly that we actually have a project that we're going to be embarking on after commencement to increase lighting around Green Hall and around the quad. So that's actually in process right now, because we recognize that there's some real need there. And the planning team has done a kind of wayfinding study that I believe that Sasaki is aware of to incorporate, but I'll let anyone else from my team jump in if they want to provide further information. But yeah, there's some dark areas on campus that we need to address.
Yeah, and we did conduct an online map-based survey at the beginning of this process, where students, faculty, staff could flag certain concerns or considerations wayfinding, lighting, signage being one of them, and we're providing that back to the university. We're also really studying the sort of key gateway moments on the campus. As we know, as a large campus, there are many ways into campus, but what is that experience at those key gateways, for instance, along like 138, et cetera, as you're coming to campus? So our focus is more on those sort of more signature, larger gateway moments, and then how the landscape can help contribute to wayfinding. And then the more detailed study around signage and lighting, I think, are things that we're incorporating, based on some of the previous studies that have been done or other things that are already underway.
I also want to just quickly note that we're also not relying on the purely built environment now for wayfinding. We're also investing resources in new GIS-based systems that will provide kind of live mapping, both at a kiosk or on your phone, or point to point, room to room options showing where the accessible paths are and such like that. So we're integrating technology as well as looking at the built environment.
Well, I love some of these ideas. I think the Ellery Pond one in particular, and then some of the mobility pathways. First of all, I see naming events everywhere, like naming opportunities. But I think there's so much that we have a good base. And building on that base is I think could be beautiful. It's always struck me that Ellery Pond could be so much, like it could be a gathering area, and it kind of almost gets in the way versus it being great. But I guess my bigger question is, how do we, and Abby, I know you're working on this, but this all is going to cost. Like, how do we think about, and are you ready to, at some point, to talk about what's the full budget for this, and how do we prioritize? Because a lot we could do, but how do we think about priorities?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'm viewing this plan as a guide for our capital improvement plan, which is our 5-year plan that we have to submit to the state every summer, which the board will see first for our next capital improvement plan in April, and then again in June. Really, that's the process by which we take this plan and we try to figure out funding sources for what projects we want to prioritize, and then put them in priority lists as they go to the state. Now, the state doesn't fund them all, but that's the vehicle by which internally we kind of manage how we're going to prioritize the project. So I think it's about taking this plan. The good news is the last plan we had, it took us 20 plus years, but we were able to execute on most of it. So my goal is that we take this plan and then we use it for our CIP for the next 20 years. And hopefully we make through as many of these projects as we can. And that'll be a dialogue with the board, of course, as we're looking at that CIP every year.
And this is where we have to be like walking extremely closely with the foundation.
Absolutely.
And how we're fundraising, because you could show a lot of alum or even corporate partners like what this could look like, and what their role could be, and that's where we have to get really close with how we're fundraising.
Yeah. And I would add to, we do have a sort of cost estimator that's part of this process. So we'll be taking, as we develop the ideas of and defining what these different projects are, from building projects to landscape projects, we'll be putting costs to it. And then, we'll work through what we think are the sort of priorities in these sort of tranches of time. But we know that things change based on, state funding and other funding sources. And so the idea is that this is a flexible framework, but the point is to give you as much information as possible to make those decisions in terms of high level planning costs, and where the sort of the pressures might be in terms of which buildings have condition issues that need to be resolved, that we can also stack programmatic improvements, or what academic programs maybe have enrollment surges that we need to address, et cetera. So we'll have all of that information that will enable you to continue to make those ongoing decisions.
Any other questions for Tyler or Abby? We have, one thing I just want to mention is that I think that, this master plan, as you said, Abby, is like a guiding principle. It's not set in stone as we go through and technology comes in and we try to price it out. But we know there's a few needs for sure. Housing, which we're already starting, right? Housing is obviously one. We have graduate housing too, which is kind of just mentioned here, but that's one. And then some of these buildings are in state of bad repair, some are in state of good repair. Where do we have to put maintenance dollars? It better, we need to have that whole library of inventory. Like, Mark talked about the athletic complex down there, for the track and how bad shape that was, and that led to a bond. So we have to have like a far rolling process of where we assess the individual needs, and we also assess what the current state of those projects are, bad, good, or indifferent, and so what we can do to expedite them or fund them, or do we renovate, or we do knock them down, or whatever. So I think that's something that's important to get out of the study.
Yeah, I agree. And Tyler, you mentioned the housing and residential life master plan. I think it says erroneously in the presentation it was 2018, but it was actually 2023. So we have that like really
Yes.
detailed plan that
Right.
kind of gives us, at least the next 15 years, and that's very prescriptive. Now, I think Tyler mentioned we've made some slight adjustments in the master plan based on discussions, like for example, where the location of the health and counseling center might be and how that might impact other projects. So I think the comprehensive plan is sort of building on the housing and residential master life plan, but has housing and residential life master plan, but that gets into really gritty detail that we're still kind of using as we think about the housing aspects of the
Yeah.
of the broader plan. So.
And then also Mike, to your point, we are just finishing up a facilities condition assessment project, which is being integrated into the
Right.
comprehensive campus plan to understand, where we need to invest our maintenance and repair dollars.
Right, right. Okay, anybody else? We have a second agenda item on two, which is the Upper College Road, and then we go into executive session. So I don't know if you want to take that, or anybody
Yeah,
else have any questions?
this is really just an update for the committee that at the Finance and Facilities Committee next week, we'll be seeking approval to purchase 42 Upper College Road from the URI Foundation. So you may recall that the URI Foundation actually purchased this private house when it came on the market last year. And you can see from what Ryan just pulled up where it is. We viewed it. Ryan, just show the president's house so that people are oriented. Yeah, so there's the president's house, and it's really directly right across the street. So it's kind of a key corner of the Upper College Road entrance. So when it came on the market, the URI Foundation did purchase the property, and we executed an MOU to transfer that and purchase it from, at the University of Rhode Island. So we're working through that process, and we'll be seeking approval from Finance and Facilities next week to do that. So this is more of just a heads up for the committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have anything else for? Master plan is gonna be finished in the summer, right, Tyler?
Yeah, we're gonna finish the draft this summer, and then that will come to the board in September for approval and finalization.
And I'm open to any, we meet again in June and then not again till September. So certainly open to any avenue by which members of the committee might want to see the draft or weigh on it over the summer, even if we don't have a planned meeting. So certainly happy to follow up on that.
Margot, I think we should have the master plan highlights presented to the board so they understand the things that we just talked about. So at some point, Margot, I think this is summarized for a board meeting and visually and prioritized. And so I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I was thinking, I hear September, but I think maybe we should do like a very high level preliminary in June. So the board has 2 bites of like seeing this, and it doesn't come all at once. So it doesn't have to be done, but even just what you went through today, I think acclimating people to it and then a full on in September, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. We'll
Does
plan
that
for
work, Mike?
Yeah, I think that I agree. And I also think one of the things we need to do is think if we wanted to turbocharge this plan or speed it up, we have obviously financial constraints, but what can we do, like off balance sheet financing, the P3s that we're talking about for the development of the housing? So what tools do we have, what opportunities we have, and get Armin's view and all that on what we can do to use private money that, we got limited resources, right, to speed it up, as well, Margot, as donations. I went, the Syracuse is a Goldman Sachs alumni who gave that walk, and he's taken people in Margot. They put 7 other naming opportunities on that walk when I did that walk with them. So, I mean, there's the Penn Walk, for instance, at Penn's campus. So there's an awful lot of they're both philanthropic, but there's also, I think, just what we can do with other people's money, if we can use that and leverage that with our money.
Yeah, so I'll answer first on the philanthropic side. We have a new CEO of the foundation who started yesterday, Mark Antonucci. And obviously we want to give him 5 minutes to get settled, but there's a lot we want to talk to him about. And I think we could talk separately about, I'll address this to Abby and Mark. We should probably be sitting down with Mark. And I know we have weekly meetings that we're starting. We should be walking him through this plan as a higher priority. So that as he sees campus, he understands what we're doing here. And I think if we could accelerate private funding and if there's ways to do public-private, but I just think people love to have their name on stuff. And this would be like an ideal way to get this going. And it could even be like the start of a campaign. But more like we have to figure that out. So I think we have to talk about how do we prioritize that. But I agree. I don't think we can wait for the state. I love to have state support, but I think a lot of this is going to have to come through private funding.
Okay, if anyone else have anything, if not, we're gonna move to executive session. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item number 3, executive session. So I'd like to get a motion that the ad hoc special committee convene into executive session pursuant to RIGL 42/46/5A5 for discussions or consideration related to the acquisition of lease of real property for public purposes or of the disposition of publicly held property wherein advanced public information would be detrimental to the public interest. Specifically, update of the new university housing, P3, use of the W. Alton Jones campuses and the development of property on or around the campus. I'd like to get a motion for that.
This is Armin, so moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you,
Second.
Vahid.
Vahid.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed or abstain? No? Great. We'll move, the motion is approved. We will now convene to executive session, which will last approximately an hour, after which we will reconvene in open session. The live stream will be paused during the executive session. We'll resume once it is ended. The committee can reconvene in open session. I think, Michelle, are we ready to go for that?
So what we want to do is just make sure we can confirm by saying yes, that no other person's present. And then go into,
Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, everyone's
thank you.
alone. Thank you. Sorry, Michelle.
No worries. And then I'll have you go into executive
Are we
session.
gonna go into executive session automatically?
So, yes, we're gonna move you in
I
now.
just got the message already.
The message, join
Thank you.
now, click join now, you're moving in. be on mute. That's the default. Are we live?
Oh, yeah, we're live.
We are now back in open session. Quick reminder, you're automatically all on mute. Default.
So we have 16 participants.
Yeah, Michelle, why does my screen say meeting is still in executive session?
Yep, it's being taken down right now.
Okay.
Our tech team is taking it down. But we are live. We are back in open session, so.
So can I get my first motion to seal the minutes? So the first order of business in open session is a motion to seal the executive session minutes. I have a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Second, any discussion? No, all in favor? Aye.
aye.
Aye, no abstention. So the motion to seal the minutes is passed. So, next item on the agenda is item 4, to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for your participation. We'll see you in a few weeks.
good
right.
making progress, making progress.
Progress. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.